George Schroeder, a steel artist, San Antonio native. Sculptures and metalwork creations are a combination of public art, design collaborations, as well as private commissions. More than a dozen major public art commissions are located throughout San Antonio. He also provides public art and site-specific design solutions across the country in other areas, as well as internationally. And right now he's working on a piece of public art for Iceland. And the artwork is going to be placed in the capital city of Reykjavik. How cool is that? Now, he has no formal art training, but he does have the bachelor's degree, which replaced the art degree. This is in strategic business management from the University of North Texas, which is kind of like an art degree. Please welcome George Schroeder.
Okay. Just don't look at all the people. Yeah. Well, I guess I don't really have any notes. I usually just kind of wing it. So what I'm going to show you is a little preview of a variety of my sculptures. I work in a very variety of scale, small scale, large scale, in the public and built environment, and also in smaller venues like galleries and private commissions. So I just put a variety of these works together, and I'll just try to explain them briefly as we go through. So let's get going here. This is an exhibit I did a few years ago at Blue Star Contemporary Art, and the sculptures are based on noise. I've always been interested in really abstract noise patterns, and I spent a lot of time at a scrapyard hearing the steel being actually torn. This is a close-up of one of those pieces. There's never any drawings produced for these sculptures. They're strictly improvised by the forms, and they just kind of happen. It's kind of like a jam session or something with a musician. You have some base underlying ideas, and it just happens. This piece, unfortunately, had a lot of planning, and it's at the Bexar County Justice Center, and it was an unusual project because I had to deal with 5 county commissioners. So I had to kind of be half politician, half artist, half everything. This is a close-up of one of the forms. We based the design off of some of the carvings on the original courthouse, and basically exploded the form 500 times, and then fabricated these pieces in steel. And the walls are going to be there for a while. They're about 20 tons each. These are, and this is a good example of a smaller piece that I sort of developed these maquettes when I'm working through problems. Obviously, I can't work on a large scale in any sort of immediate form. So the small scale pieces are actually kind of like little quick studies. These are only maybe foot by foot. But they are solid steel, and what I do is I heat the steel up to 2,300 degrees, and then it becomes very malleable, and I can create these really small pieces very quickly. And these are sort of based on figurative forms. Anyways, this is an interactive piece that was installed at the Botanical Gardens. The idea was to create a path or a passage where you enter the space and then you exit the space, and hopefully some sort of transformation takes place by just passing through the sculpture. These are some kids passing through it. It was real popular for the kids. They loved it. And I asked some adults when they walked through it if they felt better or worse or changed. And there was always a comment about feeling different as you walk through the artwork. Okay, 5 seconds, right? Yeah. Here's another piece based on sound energy, sort of like an explosion maybe. It was installed for a temporary exhibit up in North Texas, and it was a larger scale sort of experiment with the same sort of idea in the form, these wrecked steel pieces. And what I found kind of interesting were the close-ups. As you build these sculptures, you never know what's going to happen as the end result, especially the color. And this was sort of an interesting close-up of how the sculpture looks at a very close range, the colors and the textures. I also work in the functional sort of decorative art realm, and these are, the next few slides are a series of furniture pieces, and these are all polished aluminum based on aircraft sort of techniques and joinery techniques. As a craftsman, I'm always trying to improve and become more versatile with my skills, and this was one technique that was extremely difficult technically because you start with a flat panel and you have to create these, very unique shapes by hand. There's not any machinery. This is a larger outdoor piece located downtown. It's for a company called American Payroll Association, and it's kind of a funny story. The board had to be involved, of course. So a lot of my public work, I have to deal with people and collaboration and ideas, and it was called Paychecks from Heaven. So it's kind of not my favorite title. This is a sculpture at the Sims Public Library. It's just a sort of an artistic shot when you're standing inside of the sculpture. That's how it looks. It's sort of based on reaching into the sky type of thing. This is a bridge commission for the North Reach development, and this on the side of the bridge is all it's all clad in these. Each piece is individual, and so if it's a combination of architectural enhancement and a sculptural enhancement, this is another bridge that we had an existing structure that we had to deal with. So this is definitely a site-specific sort of oriented project. Each panel is individually made, real highly texturized, highly organic, flowy, sort of plant-like forms. This is a project in Houston that some developers approached me about a large piece they wanted in front of their building that wanted to sort of create an energetic sense of energy and feeling, and of course I created these kind of simple ring forms, but the scale was what the problem was. It was a very large sort of logistical nightmare, this 12, 18-wheelers to get it there, and cranes and contracts. So that's when the business strategy came in to the art component. I was able to sort of negotiate with these guys, and having that background really helps. This is a piece, a series that I've recently completed after traveling to Iceland. I was really inspired by the simplistic sort of barren structure of the land and the different forms, and we're raising, these pieces were built to raise money for a project that I'm currently working on. And this is a portrait of my friend Chuck Ramirez. I really don't practice portraiture a lot, but I did this piece after he passed away, obviously, and we became really close in Iceland, and he was going to be the next artist to do his work in Iceland, so that was for Chuck. All right.
All right, take a deep breath. You did great.
Yeah, that wasn't that bad.
Look them in the eyes.
Didn't mumble. Yeah.
Okay, now you mentioned that I'm sure it does help when you get those kinds of commissions and you have to go to Houston from the business to the art, but there's a lot of people here who have different parts of the brain they want to develop. How did you get from San Antonio to University of North Texas Business School to working on commissions for Houston and Iceland?
Well, it's kind of we'd have to take about another 20, 30 minutes to talk about that.
We can't. So,
but anyway, no, I grew up in a manufacturing company. My father's a manufacturing company. So I had some great experience in the factory, and also when I graduated college, I worked there for, I think, 2 or 3 years, and having that experience in a very formal professional business environment, meetings, proposals, is invaluable to my business, because I have to, when you're working in the public environment, you can't just be crazy artists. You have to deal with professionals and think in a professional manner.
Just one example of that, and before we get to the last presenter here, how did you work with these guys from Houston with a big company, and they say they want something energetic, and you say, what?
Well, I mean, you start with sketches, and the energy, sort of the nucleus atom energy immediately came to mind. And it's a fairly simple form. It's not complicated. There's not a lot of huge artistic context behind it. It was just basically it's a property enhancement for the
But did
developers.
you show them a drawing? Did you show them a little sculpture? Did you
Yeah,
show-
it starts out as sketches, and then it starts out as a little model, and then the model goes into their sort of like a Photoshop deal, and then they all talk about it, and him and haw about the budget, and then you get through that. And, I mean, it's a long process because you have to really collaborate with these guys.
And a last quick question or two. Where do you work, or do you work out of here, and what are you working on next? What are we going to be able to see around town, around the country?
I've got, my main studio is out by the airport. It's essentially just a big warehouse with overhead cranes and big equipment to handle these large pieces. The next public piece that we're going to be installing is for the University Health System out at the medical center, and it's a large sort of wall sculpture that's, it's a bit unusual. It's completely different from all my other work. So that's in the pipeline right now.
That's cool. George Schroeder, you did great with people. Look at him. George Schroeder.